Hey, we are back for another episode of We're Live, pal. I'm Double G, as you can see, and it's the beginning of baseball season, y'all. So I have my Giants jersey on, went to a game last night. We're not going to talk baseball. We're going to represent baseball. And Andrew Zarian also wearing a nice baseball jersey there. Andrew, whose jersey are you wearing there?
I'm wearing my favorite Met of all time, Mike Piazza, but was not my favorite Met until that game in 2001 where like baseball came back and he hit that home run. I was in that building. Everybody was crying. It was nuts. So I became a big Piazza fan. Fantastic player. Listen, I'm a diehard Mets fan. I'm born and raised to be a professional loser. That is the goal that has been set to me by my team, by my city. I happen to live 7 minutes away from Citi Field, so
You
I
guys
was
should
by
be good
default a
this
Mets
year.
fan. You know what? We say that every year. Every year is I'm gonna go back to like the old school 1996 Mets mantra of if we do 500 this year, I'm happy.
No, you guys should be good. You guys signed Max friggin' Scherzer. You guys should be good.
We did.
Um, do you know that I was at the first WWE show post 9/11?
You were in Texas.
Yeah, so I was in Houston, Texas for we're on a work trip, and so we're stuck in Houston for like the whole week. I think WWE was supposed to be in Houston on Tuesday for a taped Smackdown, so we were just gonna go and buy tickets, from a scalper. And then when they came back on that live show on Thursday, we're like, oh, we kind of have to go. Like, this is going to be a
Yeah,
monumental show. So yeah, I was at that SmackDown show coming the
I
first.
got I got invited to that screening at the Garden about that
Mm-hmm,
show, the
mm-hmm.
first show, and I didn't know how much what Mattress Mac he played a big part in that.
I don't even know what that is.
So I think Mattress Mac, I think that's his name. Somebody correct. It's definitely Mattress Mac. Mattress Mac he was a big time wrestling guy local in Texas. Where were they? Do you remember where was it? Dallas
For that
when they
show?
did that show? Yeah,
It was in Houston. Yeah, it was in
Yeah,
Houston.
big Houston guy, very well known. He owns a mattress company, but he also is like this like local icon. And every year in the New York Post, they talk about him. He takes some crazy bet for the Super Bowl, and he makes like a crazy killing. Like he dumps a whole ton of money, and like he ends up winning. But he became like this big time guy. But he was an instrumental part in putting that show together. And the connection is through Bruce Pritchard because Bruce, he's
Sure,
in wrestling.
sure. That makes sense.
Fascinating. It was a very interesting event that they held at the Garden, and you watch a documentary, the 9/11 documentary. It was so sad, but interesting. Connection here. You were at the first wrestling show post 9/11. I was at the first baseball show.
Yeah, that just makes us old, I think.
Baseball show. Do you say baseball?
Baseball
I was
game.
at the first baseball show.
I mean, it was kind of a show, right? Like,
It
it was a
was.
big thing. Okay, we're not going to talk about stuff from 20 years ago. We are going to talk about stuff from the current pro wrestling landscape. And the first question I have for you, Andrew, is after WrestleMania, this giant 2-night extravaganza, the most stupendous WrestleMania ever, we now have what is kind of a restart in a sense. The post WrestleMania often is a little bit of a struggle for them because creatively you put everything into WrestleMania and now you have to kind of start anew. And I'm more so looking at what they build as, the biggest match ever, which it wasn't, but Roman Reigns and Brock Lesnar. And now we have Roman Reigns. He's got both titles. Last week he's on Raw saying, on Friday I'll announce, what we're doing here. Brings out Shinsuke Nakamura, gives him a hug, and then the Usos super kick him, and then they just all beat him up. And so I was kind of wondering who is next for Roman Reigns. So I have a list of the next 5 shows. So May 8th is WrestleMania Backlash. June the 5th is the Hell in a Cell pay-per-view in Chicago. July the 2nd is Money in the Bank, which is the stadium show in Vegas. SummerSlam is actually early this year. It's July 30th. So it's not in August. And that is another stadium show in Nashville. And on September 3rd, which is a Saturday, they're doing the giant stadium show in Cardiff, Wales, in the
And then
UK.
they got another one. And they got another stadium show like
And
3 weeks after that or 4 weeks after that in Saudi Arabia. It's going to be late September, first week in October, I would say, sometime around then. Figuring it out, but that's a lot of shows.
That's
right?
a lot
of big shows
with at least nobody that I can name off on the SmackDown roster who's like, oh, the next big match for Roman Reigns.
Yeah. Right now, it looks like it's Nakamura, right? That's what it's leading to. This is a interesting problem because we talk about this all the time. Who's the top babyface in the company? I would say Cody right now.
It might be Roman Reigns.
I know.
He might be
right?
the biggest heel and the biggest babyface in the whole company.
He's figured it out, man. He's done both. But who? No, but seriously, like in your opinion, who is like the top babyface in that company right now?
I was going through the rosters, and it's either Bobby Lashley, if we consider Bobby Lashley a babyface, which I think we might, at least right now. And then I think it is Cody. It's Cody and then Drew, probably. Like those are probably the top
and I would
three.
say Riddle, Orton, right?
I guess
we can't leave last night.
We can't leave Randy out. But they're in the mix for the tag team, but they're tangentially related to Roman because the Usos, they want to they're going after the Raw belts too. So yeah, I would say those four would be the top four baby faces right now in the company. Okay, so we're fantasy booking here. I'm trying to figure out who Roman could wrestle. So let's say out of those next 6 shows that we talked about, I would imagine maybe he's not in he could be in the next match for WrestleMania Backlash. It could be a 6-man. It could be Roman and the Usos against Orton, Riddle, somebody else. Like they could do something like that. He doesn't necessarily have to defend the title. But let's say out of those next 6 shows, maybe we need 3 or 4 contenders. Maybe do a rematch here or there. So I was trying to figure out who those guys could be. I'm not sold that Nakamura is going to be the guy for WrestleMania Backlash. Not yet. Look, if this is mid 2010s New Japan Nakamura, this is a classic like dream match, right? But he's not that version of Nakamura in WWE. If they built him up to that, I'd be so down for that match. But as we've seen, they haven't been building him up for that match. So let's not hotshot Nakamura into this role necessarily. So let's pick 3 guys, and I'm gonna name a bunch of guys, and let's come up with 3. I think one of them.
You're going to do your 3, and I'll do my 3.
Well, I'll just give you the list of names, and then we'll collectively come together with who might those 3 or 4 be. I think you have to build up McIntyre for the UK show, right?
Big time.
That has to be the main event for that show.
But
and
let's
start the build now. Like, let's just build Drew for that match now. Like Drew should just be killing everybody in his way to get to that match. So let's pencil Drew in for September. You know what's interesting about that September show? If we are in Chicago for All Out again, like we were last year, that show is the day before.
Yeah.
So we're gonna have to figure out how to watch it if we are.
I guess we're watching it in the hotel room.
I guess, or maybe I don't know. There's like some theaters out there we could get the group together. I don't know, whatever it is.
Yeah.
But that show with the heavy AEW audience, a lot of them will not be super interested in the WWE show, or some of them will be interested just to watch and sort of hate watch the WWE show. But okay, so let's pencil Drew McIntyre in for that match. So that means we have like 5-ish shows for another couple of guys. I'm going to name the guys off who may fit this bill for being a possible contender for Drew McIntyre. For Roman Reigns. Okay, 1, Bobby Lashley. He's on the Raw side, so they would have to do something where either he comes over to SmackDown or or Roman's defending against all Raw guys now too, because he's got both belts. So there's going to have to be some explanation of what happens there. But Bobby Lashley beats Omos at WrestleMania, former champion, legitimately well booked, high on the card, babyface. I'll give you another one. We talked about him, Randy Orton. Randy Orton is kind of in the mix. He's a historical star, always a name, continually gets over. Looks like he's having the time of his life with Riddle with this tag team scenario. We mentioned Drew. I'm gonna throw a wild card here at you because he just debuted on SmackDown. Gunther. Walter. Let's just call him Walter. Walter. If they decide that he's a new guy, he hasn't been overexposed. This isn't someone that Roman has wrestled 10 times already. Like, because we could say Seth Rollins, but we've seen that match 100 times. We could say Edge too, but we saw that match all of last year. So I'm going to throw Gunther out there.
I like Gunther.
I'm also going to throw, let's go Cody Rhodes out there. The reason why I'm hesitating on Cody is just because I don't want Cody to lose. I think Cody is hot as hell right now.
Yeah, he shouldn't lose. He shouldn't lose for a while. Yeah.
So
listen,
maybe
Money in the Bank. Give him Money in the Bank.
Yeah, he could get Money in the Bank, and then he gets a title match at SummerSlam. But maybe they'll be creative with the belts there. Okay, so a couple other guys I'll just throw at you. We could always say Bill Goldberg. Bill Goldberg is like the get out of jail free card for Vince McMahon when he doesn't have anybody.
Listen, you said who's next twice,
yeah,
right?
Yeah.
If you said it a third time, he just pops up, man. He goes, and it just shows up.
Okay. The aforementioned Seth. We probably don't need to see it, but he's a top guy. He's always in the mix. I don't imagine Brock is coming back for this current, before SummerSlam run. But there's also Brock. There's also Edge. There's also AJ Styles. If you want to dig deeper into the mid card, there's a Sheamus. There's a Jinder. There is Nakamura, and then there's some guy, some young hot babyface sitting at NXT named Braun Breaker. I don't think it's the break glass yet for Braun Breaker. Okay, so I gave you a bunch of names. Now, if we pencil Drew McIntyre into that UK show, that leaves us with needing a SummerSlam main event. You had the idea of having Cody win the Money in the Bank. So, do you think Cody should main event SummerSlam against Roman Reigns?
I got to tell you, I don't know. I'm conflicted, right? Like, I'm conflicted on when and if and how he should get the title. But I could tell you, like, how I think it should be led up to it. Or I don't think it should be Roman. I don't think WWE is going to put him into position to beat Roman. If they do, I mean, that says so much about what they think of this guy. I could see, like you said, I could see Drew and Roman. And then maybe now you have a story naturally between Drew as one that left the company, reinvented himself, and the same with Cody, so they could face each other. I can see Bobby Lashley and Cody having a program because they had it in Impact. So there's a lot of these different angles, but I honestly, man, I don't see they haven't built that guy yet, right? And that's scary to say. You named off some top Drew McIntyre, by all accounts, and I don't blame WWE for this misstep. I blame, obviously, the pandemic.
Yeah.
This guy should have been you got a guy that looks like him. How do you not make him into the Hogan? And he's beloved. Kids love him. Women love him. Guys like him. I'm not saying this because he has a nice beard like me and a nice full head of hair. But, I mean, you look at this guy and you're like, how is this guy not Hogan? Totally charismatic. You could have done it. You created that moment. He was the Kingslayer. He beat Brock Lesnar. He kicked him out of that Rumble. And everything else, kind of fell apart after that. I think for Roman, I like the Nakamura thing just because it's going to be an interesting match and you're going to enjoy it. I love the Walter idea, and only because Walter could lose this match and it wouldn't hurt him whatsoever. It wouldn't touch him. But Walter's a heel, right?
Yes, I think so.
I think
As
so.
far as
I
what we
mean,
saw on SmackDown.
so Cody beating Roman is I don't know. I don't know if they'll go through with that now. I mean, if they do, that's great. They just showed that they have such confidence in this guy. I mean, Cody's totally the number one babyface in that company right now, but it's 3 weeks in or 2 weeks in. We have to see at week 6 how this looks.
Yeah.
He's married to Seth for the next pay-per-view.
Yeah.
Did they announce that or no?
I don't think
I
they've
would
announced it, but they
Okay.
were
I'm sure
definitely
they'll
going there on Raw.
Yeah. A lot of people thought it was going to be Kevin Owens, but maybe that's after Seth. But it looks like it's going to be Seth. I mean, in my notes, I mean this came from somebody there. Where Cody's he's going to have a big program with Seth Rollins moving forward. So I don't know if that ends immediately. That it is such a conundrum that they're in right now, and it says the state of the company. You look at AEW, in which we're going to talk about. There are a handful, I mean, 5 or 6 baby faces that you could look at and say, okay, these are real contenders for that title. And you could have every single one of these matches and make it believable that they could become the world champion. MJF, CM Punk, Danielson, Moxley, Jericho, even you could throw in that. I mean, there's a ton of these guys that you could throw in, and you're like, okay, this is a Samoa Joe, I would believe. You put him in that match, but they have conditioned these babyfaces. They've conditioned you to think that these babyfaces are such fools in this company that nothing matters. So, I would say I would love to see Riddle once the Riddle and Orton marriage is over. Maybe they have a match at SummerSlam. Maybe they start falling apart, which I'm cool with. Riddle could be that number one babyface on that company. Cody could be that other guy. Drew's the other guy. Now you created 3 really likable baby faces that could become contenders. But who's drawn the business? Who's drawn the gate out of all those guys that you listed? I would say Cody probably, right? Like he would be the most must watch Monday night after he wins.
Yeah, and look, they could do something like if we put Cody in for SummerSlam. Like let's say Cody is the SummerSlam guy. Maybe it's only for the Raw title. Maybe it's not for the SmackDown title.
I don't think. No, they're going to have to split that title. Well, that's the other problem, right? What the hell do you do? Because it's not. Well, is it he's a unified or undisputed? I can't remember. I ask this question every show that I do. The chat room will know. They don't have a set plan, and that's a little alarming. I mean, the reports came out last week. I spoke about it on Friday when I was past this note. WWE still has no plan, no idea of the word was no methodology to the unification. That was the word. And how often he's going to be showing up on which show. Obviously SmackDown, but it's not set that he's going to be on Raw every week. So
yeah. He wasn't yesterday, right?
He wasn't, no, he wasn't on afterwards.
Yeah, I don't, because I watched the clipped Hulu version, so I would have thought I didn't see him, but they would have showed him on that.
Whatever it is, I would say it's the undisputed WWE Universal Champion. That is the title of it. Thank you in the chat room. Thief of the Righteous with that.
Wow, what a mouthful!
I don't know what a mouthful. I know. I would say like the biggest pop, I would say it's Cody. The right way, he had a dark match. That's what it was. I knew he was on afterwards. Drew makes sense, but does it matter right now? I mean, if Drew beats him in the UK, yeah, it's huge. That's the place he should do it.
Yeah,
but there's still a lot of opponents until September.
Yes. Okay, so let's put Cody in SummerSlam. I think that's the biggest match, especially if they continue to build him. And if that is the end goal for Cody, at least it gives them the reason to continue pushing him like a top guy, right? So let's put Cody in for SummerSlam.
Cody versus who?
Roman? Cody versus Roman.
Cody versus Roman. I don't like that. I don't think they'll. I don't like it because I think Cody will Cody win the title and beat him. I mean, there's so many different ways you could go here, and I don't even think they know because we would, generally you start hearing what the plan is. Like after WrestleMania, last year, I kind of had an idea of where things were falling into place. I think I was sold the whole SummerSlam plan moving forward. Like,
Mm-hmm.
it was like everything was set in stone. Now, I don't know if the Cody thing has kind of put a monkey wrench in this, or they
Mm-hmm.
just haven't thought this through. All right, so you're going Cody at SummerSlam. What happens in the UK, in Wales?
Roman and Drew.
He drops the other title
Good question.
because you can't have
Unless
Cody lose, man.
I know. Can you have Drew lose there? I
No,
don't know.
you know what? They would do it, but I don't think they should at
I
all.
don't think they should either.
Well, you got to look at it this way: they got to rehab Drew, right? He has to be. They got to rehab the character because I think it got stale. The stupid sword has ruined him for me. And the feud with Madcap Moss and Baron Corbin, it was a nothing feud. He got dropped down a couple spots. Now is the time to rebuild him. You start rebuilding him. You have him win that title, and my God, that building is exploding once he wins that title in the UK. And then now you built a total gigantic babyface.
Yep.
Maybe him and Cody, and then you go him and Cody turns heel. I don't know. I very interested by this.
All right, so we don't know who's going to win these matches, but at least we're kind of plugging guys in that I think would make these programs really interesting. So I'm still not sure it's going to be Nakamura. I'm almost like maybe this becomes a 6-man, like the Usos and Roman against against Randy and Riddle and Nakamura or something. I don't know. I'm not exactly sure if Nakamura is going to be that guy, but okay, we still have Hell in a Cell. We still have the Las Vegas Money in the Bank. So we would still need a couple of guys for those shows. Would you put Lashley in one of those matches? Would you put Gunther in one of those matches? Where are you leaning towards for those other shows?
I don't know. I don't think Gunther is gonna be in the title match. I don't see them. I mean, we would love that, but I don't think they're gonna stick to the basics. So right now on SmackDown, who's the top babyface? Drew,
Drew,
and then followed by Nakamura, maybe.
It's really light.
Scary.
I mean, it would be Big E, but Big E got hurt.
Big E's
so
hurt.
That's not
yeah.
that was sort of uncontrollable. They'd already pushed him down the card.
I'm trying to find.
And then on the Raw side, we mentioned Lashley, we mentioned Cody, we mentioned Orton. The other guys, AJ. You could always throw AJ in there, right? He's always going to be somebody who's going to give you a good match. Yeah, he's Raw. But yeah, there's not. This is why this conversation or trying to have this discussion is really hard because they don't have tons and tons of guys ready who are like easily like, let's put this person next.
Great. This is a great case to get rid of the brand split. I'm looking at SmackDown. I've never seen. I mean, this is a really weak roster here on the SmackDown side. Your top guys on this side are Drew, Roman. I mean, there's nobody else. I'm not. I mean, you got Kofi. Kofi could challenge for sure, but Kofi has not been in a singles mix for a while. What are you gonna do? Have Mace? I mean, look at this.
That's why I added Sheamus and Jinder to that list. Dude, because though at least they're big guys who you could heat up kind of quickly. Not that I want to see that. Sheamus has had pretty solid last couple years, but yeah, like that's why like this discussion is hard, and I didn't figure we were going to resolve it here today, but I think ultimately Lashley, believable, Cody, believable, Orton, believable, McIntyre, believable. Outside of that, I think we'd get a lot of groans for anyone outside of those four who were in this title picture for future Roman matches.
Yeah, wild. Very, very interesting. I mean, listen, if we listed guys like Cody, you do Cody, you do Nakamura, you do Lashley, you do Drew. Okay, you got yourself through a couple months here. And then what?
So
Ezekiel. Maybe they'll do Ezekiel.
Ezekiel.
Finn Balor?
Omos.
I mean,
Finn is sort of near that list, I think.
Owens.
And Damian Priest and Kevin Owens as well. Were sort of near that list. But the only reason I didn't put Owens is because he had that big feud with Roman already. Like, we've seen that already, so interesting little discussion there.
Logan Paul.
Pat McAfee. Okay, so let's talk a little bit of AEW, but I know there's a business conversation that someone asked you about on Twitter, and we were going to talk about it anyway, but this Warner Discovery merger, somebody asked me, like, oh, what does this mean for AEW? And I'm like, that's like not that AEW is insignificant in this thing, but there's so many other things that people are probably worried about before you get to AEW, sort of like what happens during a merger when you have all of these jobs that are duplicates of each other. Like, that's the stuff that people are immediately worried about. But what have you heard anything about how this is going to affect business in any way?
I have a lot of friends on the Warner Media side, like the sales side and some of the other departments over there. Generally on the sales side, it's not business as usual for them because obviously they're anticipating some sort of cuts. Generally when you merge like this, people lose jobs. Redundancy happens, and it sucks, and it's terrible, but it's part of it. I mean, that's just how it works. So that's been a rumbling, but just look at it this way, right? And this is key for television, and this is key for radio and any kind of media. If you, as a sales team, have no confidence in the product or it's not liked, it's the end. So as long as the sales team that's selling these ads for Turner, they're thrilled with AEW, and AEW is doing great business, they're going to be fine. They're going to be safe. There was a rumor going around. People are saying that the Discovery CEO is very much against PG-13 content and only has PG, wants PG on it. That's an impossibility considering Turner. One of their biggest on TBS, they replay Family Guy and they replay American Dad, and those are not PG products. HBO Max, for example, which is one of their properties. The biggest show on there is Euphoria right now, which is about teenage debauchery. So you forget about that. However, this is going to be, I think the big part is going to be what happens when they renegotiate that deal. And they got to start at the end of the year this year, right? Because the deal ends end of 2023. So you have to start talking about it late 2022, early 2023, and get to a point and figure out what you're doing. I think the biggest problem here is going to be what their rights fee is, how much money they get from them. Are they going to get $100 million a year? I don't think so, to be honest. However, let me ask you this, because you worked. I mean, you've done the corporate thing. We've both lived through the AOL Time Warner merger.
Mm-hmm.
And me on the tech side, of that stuff. This isn't the same type of deal. This is not the same type of merger. You had two companies that merged, and it historically became the biggest failure of a merger of all time. I mean, it was that big of a failure beyond wrestling. I mean, people on the technology side, which I mean, you're from the tech side. It went down historically as a catastrophe as far as how these companies merge. I don't see that with Discovery. I don't see that happening. Never say never, but I don't see that happening. But I don't think this is a kiss of death for AEW. I think it's way too soon to even speculate if it's a negative. However, I don't see them getting this blockbuster hundreds of millions of dollars of TV rights, a deal for TV rights. I do see them getting something, a bump, but I don't think it's going to be this astronomical number that a lot of people imagine. Now, I'm curious what you think.
Well, they need another person who wants them, right? Like, when you only have one person bidding for your content, then yeah, you're sort of at that mercy. I don't know who could it be? Could
Paramount? They're in existence.
I mean, that's the other streaming service that's sort of out there. And I don't think a Netflix or an Apple wants just a wrestling company for a streaming only product. But I guess to go back to, I was looking at, I don't watch a lot of Discovery's shows, but if you look at some of the library of stuff, pro wrestling kind of fits right in to what they do. Lots of reality TV stuff. They're just the style of content that they do. You could see them maximizing some of these AEW characters, right? To stuff like what Cody wanted to do, his own reality show, the Go Big Show stuff. It seems like they are a good fit for that thing, for maybe bringing out some of these wrestlers to do more than just wrestling. So from that standpoint, it seems like it's a pretty good match. But the flip side is, I think this is what people are scared of, is if you are not a fan of wrestling and you don't understand it, you probably feel like it's not necessary. And so I hope that for AEW's sake, and there's champions for AEW who are going to be, in big roles, because then they'll say, look, here's what the value is. Look at these ratings. The ratings are really solid. We can grow this property. They're a young company. They have a young CEO who's hungry to grow, and he's got money, so we don't have to worry about them going out of business. Like, all of those things are really good when you want to get behind a young company. So I think all of those things are very positive.
But here's where some of the, like, I'm a big believer on performance obviously matters, right? And it's only like 60% that it matters. The rest is likability. If you're likable, if someone is a fan of yours, you'll be able to do a lot more with what you're given. Tony's beloved by the people over at Warner Media. I know that for a fact. I talked to people.
He's also beloved by the bots, by the way.
Oh, we got to talk about the bots. We got to talk about the bots. I got to talk about this bot situation. I got to ask all about the bots. I mean, over and over again. But Tony's very well liked by a lot of key people over at Warner Media, and that's tremendous. That's great. Yeah. But what happens when some of those people get moved in their positioning? Yeah. They either get promotion or they get let go, and somebody else comes in. And I'm going to use this as an example. I don't believe that this is the case, but I'm going to use this as an example. You're some executive that's making a decision. You get an email sent to you, and it's like, this is what you're going to pay $100 million for, and it's a pizza cutter cutting Chris Jericho's head. You know what I mean? I'm gonna throw that out there.
Yes, I completely understand that one.
If you don't think that will play a part in this, in this PR battle, I deal with these guys, these corporate guys on daily. It is one little thing could change the entire trajectory of a deal. So, I hope that's not the case for AEW. I want them to do better than ever. I'm a big fan of their product, but I do think that they're in a good position. Listen, the ratings are holding up. People are happy over there. They're putting on first-run sports programming that's unique and interesting, that's hitting a really interesting key demo for them. They are very popular, very well liked. The synergy between the station and them is deep. So I think they're fine. I don't think this is like a terrible moment, but a lot could change in a year and a half. Ton could change in a year and a half.
Yes.
Hot shot every week at the end of the year. Every week has to be a hot shot angle. Every week we need to bring back everything. Schmaz finishes, crazy things blowing up.
I'm watching 98 Raw, man. And
that's pretty much 98 Raw.
That's what it is, and it's some of it is really good too.
Yeah.
Okay, so did you want to talk about this bots thing?
Yeah, let's talk about it.
What did you think? One of the wackier tweets that I'd seen from someone in a leadership role, but okay. I sort of get it. I
get it 100%. I think he's absolutely right. I agree with what Tony's saying. I don't think that this is Tony being crazy. I agree 100%. Now, the problem is when you put out a tweet like that, those people that you're accusing of bots, or the people that are bots, are going to get triggered by this, and it's going to become even more of a thing, right?
Yes, this is what Dave and I talked about on Friday night. Oh, like the irony of that tweet.
Yeah, it's just going to create more of a scenario. Maybe that's part of it. Maybe he wants to see who's doing this. Maybe he needs more data to collect, because I have to tell you, and I've gotten hit by by some of those bots before I came over to Observer. I didn't have as much, right? Like now I get like, like the 10 or 20 guys that hate AEW and they think I love everything AEW and I hate WWE. And I get on the other side where there's like 10 or 20 people that think I absolutely love WWE and I hate AEW. I have no idea where that came from at all. I really don't understand it. So, I put out, I think Rich made a tweet about Roman Reigns, okay, winning the women's title. This was years ago. This is when like everybody was like, Roman is getting shoved down our face. Roman is getting shoved down our face, right? That was like when that was happening. And Roman put out a tweet saying like, oh, I think, don't be surprised if Roman Reigns wins the women's title or something like that. Garrett, when I tell you we had, if not hundreds of the same or if not similar tweet coming at us for being misogynistic and being anti-woman. I mean, it was the wackiest thing that I've ever seen on the internet. And it was a bombardment. This was during a pay-per-view. It was a bombardment with just, the avatars were, random female wrestlers, a lot of Sasha Banks fan accounts.
Mm-hmm.
And it was endless. It went on for like 2 days. And I'm like, okay, you know what? This was definitely some sort of bot. There's not enough effort nobody would put into. And like some of these, like I looked at who they're following, and it's like the same accounts. They're all following the same accounts. So
do we know the difference between a bot and a service that, and maybe these are the same things. I just want to make sure I understand. I think of bot as like some sort of algorithmic creation of accounts, and using computer engineering and stuff to do this. And I may be off, but I was talking to my son. He's got an Instagram account for his podcast, and he said you could pay $8 for 700 Instagram followers.
Yeah.
And I said, well, how do these guys get created? Well, there's a company that they just make all these accounts. They follow you, and then it just gives you a little bit of a bump in your status. I was like, because like they're just there to follow you. They don't have content of their own. He's like, yeah, it's just this thing where someone goes to your account when you have 300 followers. They're like, that's not that big of a deal. But now you have 1,000 and you have a little bit of a status bump. So he was telling me about this. I was like, oh, this is crazy.
You also have like something called pods where you have groups of people that will uppost other people's stuff. Like this is a big thing amongst influencers on social media. So they join pods, and a pod is like a group of 36. And you can be in multiple pods. And the way that it works is like every time somebody in that pod makes a post, you like and you comment on it. And they do the same for you, even if it has nothing to do with you. So I think it's a combination of things. Are there bots that are activated to be anti-AEW? Sure. Are there people that are in pods that maybe do this to get a kick? Sure, absolutely. But this is how social media is.
Yeah.
But
you're just gaming it. You're gaming social media.
They're gaming it. But those guys are a fraction of what the audience is for AEW and a fraction of what the audience is for WWE. Why concentrate on that? Why put the tweet out? That was my only thing. Do I agree with them? Yeah, I think these things happen. But it was interesting. The end of that was, I wonder who is paying for this or something along those lines.
Mm-hmm.
Little accusatory. It makes you think. What do you think in your head?
Well, I mean, I think the intent was to say WWE without saying WWE, right?
I asked somebody at WWE. I asked somebody that would be very hands-on with it. They laughed. They said absolutely not. But I mean, they're not going to say yes to me.
Right.
They're not going to be like, yeah, Andrew, don't tell Tony, Because I'd probably come here and be like, hey, by the way, I spoke to someone at WWE. They said that it's real,
It's the 2022 version of the DX Army, right? You remember DX? They're like, oh, we have an army and we're going to attack WCW. It's the 2022 version of that.
I find social media is exhausting if you live on social media. If you don't live on social media, none of this matters to you. And my advice
your life
always
is
to people
probably
is,
you're probably a little less anxious if you don't pay attention to social media.
dude, it changes everything. You know, like you're like, I don't give a shit about social media personally. Like I do it because of the shows. If I never did any of this,
Yes.
if I didn't have like a great, you know, we have like such a great group of guys that we talk to and women that we talk to, like that listen to the show and that are part of the community.
Oh yeah.
It is great and it's super motivating and it's amazing to see how much you could reach people and build these relationships with them because I've become friends with a lot of them.
Yeah.
However, the other side is you can't like that. Those are the people you got to do it for. You can't go in there and be like, oh, you see what so-and-so wrote to me? Block, mute, whatever. Out of sight, out of mind, you're done. It doesn't matter. It's not real life.
Anybody who was unfairly negative, I just block them because I don't need to see it. But I love having discussions. And if someone has an opposition to something that I've said and they have a good reason and they explain themselves, I'll have that conversation all day long. Like I love stuff like that because that's engagement. The negativity for the sake of being negative and unfairness when it comes to that, that's you just get rid of it. That's why I don't see a lot of the negative stuff on social media. You know, sometimes Dave and I'll do a show and he'll say something or I say something and then people kind of run with it. I don't see it because one, I'm not on the F4W message boards anymore. And two, I blocked all the people who would have probably said something unfair, and thus I don't see it. So that I'm 100% with you on that.
It's fine. Listen, man, it is what it is. This is the state of the internet. This is the state of how you do it. You gotta do it for the good. You gotta do it for the good people. You can't do it for people that are negative. I love doing this, and I always say the second it's not fun anymore, and I'm getting obsessive over what people are saying about me, I'm done. I never have to show up again. I'll delete all my accounts. Nobody will hear from me again.
What about the podcast though?
I'll kill the podcast.
I
told Rich all the time. I said that to Rich the other day. I'm like, dude, listen, I love doing this. I can't see myself ending it, right? Like I can't ever see myself ending doing this. It brings me, this is my therapy more than I have a crazy, hectic shoot work life.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's out of control. You have some insight on it. I don't think anybody else understands like what I really do. This is fun. The second it becomes not fun, I don't need to do it, man. I got a great family. I got a great life. I have great friends. I'll talk to you. I'll hang out with you. I'll appear on your pocket. Like we'll do stuff, but like I don't have to make this to the point that I'm going crazy and putting out tweets about bots.
Well, we'll see. I'm waiting to see the follow up. Though but I kind of hope he keeps it internal because I think that's the smart play.
You get some of it. Dave gets a lot. I get some. Imagine what this guy gets daily.
Oh, so bad.
He wakes up in the morning, and like people should think about this. He wakes up in the morning, he goes on Twitter, and somebody's calling him an idiot or like whatever, and sometimes it's even like worse. It's like the worst insults you could say, and you're like, you have to decide at that moment: is this going to affect my day, or do I not give a shit about this?
Oh, I have a ton of empathy for him from that perspective, or anybody who's got to deal with
anybody in media, yeah.
Okay. We have 15 minutes left. I wanted to move to the conversation, which Friday, I had this conversation with Dave on Friday's Wrestling Observer Radio, which is Tony Khan is trying to rebuild Rampage, right? When Rampage originally debuted, he's like, it's going to be an A show. It's going to matter. And it did for a few weeks. And then it stopped mattering, at least to me. You had solid wrestling matches, but we have solid wrestling matches like all week long. Like we need story, we need crossover show, we need something that happened on Dynamite that affects Rampage. And so it sounds like, or it looks like, based on Friday's Rampage, they are attempting to rebuild Rampage, and they did so with Bryan Danielson.
I've been doing it too.
Bryan Danielson and Jon Moxley were both on the show. Danielson opened up the show with Trent Beretta. Moxley closed the show with Wheeler Yuta in a match that really just took the wrestling ecosystem, social media by storm. Like all I was hearing about was how good this match was. I didn't even watch it until Sunday, I think. I didn't watch it till Sunday. Really strong match, but it wasn't just the match. It was the story of this young wrestler who William Regal has his eye on. Danielson has his eye on, Moxley has his eye on to an extent, and they want to see what this guy has. And the way that this guy shows them what he has is he's just got to take a beating from them. Danielson gave him a beating. Moxley on Friday gave him a beating. He took it and he said, I want more. And so we had this crazy match on Friday, which was really good. Story was great. Yuta's kicking out of big moves. He's bleeding. And finally, Moxley gets him to tap out to the choke. What did you think about Yuta's performance here? And do you think, is this one of those things where we hardcore wrestling fans are like, a star is born, and the overall casual fan base, if they still exist, are like, who's this kid? Who's this Wheeler Yuta kid? Are we over embracing this moment as wrestling fans, or was this really something that happened on Friday?
I will because I watch it in two ways, right? I watch it as covering it, and I watch it as a casual, like how does a casual see it? I think it's half and half, right? I think we as hardcore fans absolutely love this. I think the casual fan is looking at this saying, "Oh wow, he's a tough guy. And he's younger, and they're building." I think they get what they're doing. I don't think it's there yet. But you got to also change the package a little bit, change his gear a little bit, puts on a little, get a little beefier, and then you're talking like that's always, by the way, that's always my go-to. And I tell this to everybody. I'm like, "Oh, you had a breakup? Easy, man. Get a tan, grow a beard, and you're good." I think for Yuta, he's obviously really good, just not recognized by a lot of casual fans. But if you're watching AEW, it's less of a casual fan base than anything else. The AEW audience is going to eat this up. I don't know how much, a WWE crossover is into Wheeler Yuta. Like that. I don't know, but I thought they did a very good job the last 3 weeks. He also took that beating in that tag match where I was like, my God, they're beating the crap out of him. And then it turned into something. But, he has the ROH Pure title. Let him go on ROH. Let him defend that title. It's the Danielson legacy, right? Essentially, because he was Pure champion, right?
Did they? I don't think that. I think the Pure belt is. Maybe the Pure belt's been sort of.
Nope. Did I lose Garrett?
Of ROH. So.
Oh, there he is. I broke up. You said you broke up. You
said something. I said the ROH Pure title. I feel like it's been sort of on and off, but I don't have a great knowledge of the history of ROH to answer that confidently.
Yeah, I'm trying to find it. I know that it was 2004. The title was originally named the Pure title as AJ Styles defeated CM Punk in the final of the 8. I don't know. Maybe no. Danielson did have it.
Okay, there you go.
Oh no, he took on. It was a title for title match. That's what it was. 2006. He took on Nigel McGuinness for it. So I think they're doing the right move by him. You could obviously see that AEW is refocusing and putting more concentration on some of the younger talent over the last couple of months. I'm happy with what they're doing. I'm curious what somebody else thinks. Like someone that watches AEW every couple of weeks, what they're thinking. I don't know too many of those people.
Yeah, I don't either, because I think AEW fans are pretty hardcore. I feel similarly to you in that I think it's a big moment for the people who watch everything for AEW. They've been watching this guy, right? There's an interesting conversation about him and Daniel Garcia. I think they're sort of peers. You compare them. Daniel Garcia went the Jericho route, and Wheeler Yuta's the Mox and Danielson route. So it'll be interesting to see where they are. I love the passion that wrestling fans have for stuff like this. My worry, I'll tell you what my worry is in the follow-up, because we are still waiting for Jungle Boy to complete this process of becoming this giant star, right? We've seen him face Jericho, and we've seen him get close big wins, and then they moved him to the tag team. So I'm assuming he's at some point going to go back to the singles. But the follow-up is what is going to be necessary for this Wheeler Yuta to continue to be on the ascent. If it just becomes like, oh, he's in the club, and now he's just the third guy in the club, and we don't build off of that, then whatever that momentum is, I think Tony Khan actually tweeted, he said something like a star is born or something like that after that match was over. So it's got to be the follow-up. There's got to be some growth. If they see him as maybe a future TNT champion and he gets in that mix, then that's good progress. But if he just kind of he's in the club, then it's like, okay, maybe that moment wasn't as great as we thought it was. And also, I know a lot of people say this, I would have rather this happened on Dynamite because there's so many more people watching for moments like this, right? Now, let's build Rampage back up so that we could put moments on this and not waste them. But yeah, there's another thing that I was thinking about was, man, this would have been better on Dynamite. But I say
600,000 people watch Rampage. 120,000 ish more than usual. It worked, but I 2 shows, man. I think that second show was a little too early for them, but it was either do a third hour or do the second show, and I think Tony made the right call by picking a second show and getting a second night on the channel, on the station. That's a big. I think people that's a great business move for Tony, to convince him no, give me another night, because that another night could turn into 2 hours eventually. You do a good job. I like the Yuta stuff. I think most people do. I don't find anything wrong with it. He's one thing that they did great with him, where WWE would not have done it this way. And I'm curious if the audience enjoyed it as much as I did, or they don't like it. He never backed down once. He didn't come off as I'm tough, but you know what? You beat me. And he does I always put it out as the old man Hogan handshake that he did at WrestleMania. He didn't do one of those. I think everybody knew when I did this,
Yes.
They didn't do that. He was an MFer till the end. He fought through the end, and then even at the end, he didn't do the sad puppy. Keith Noir in the chat room. Perfectly said. He didn't do the sad puppy that they all do. And even with his team, when Trent turned on him, he's like, we brought you here, now you're leaving, and he didn't back down from Trent.
No.
So I like that his character is that he's like a pit bull.
Yeah.
I'm into this. Now, I don't know if it resonated as well as it did for me, for other people.
Well, again, the follow-up, right? We should see something on Wednesday. That is the next step. Is he initiated? What happens when you join the team? Do you just get the sweatshirt that Moxley wears? Do you get, I don't know. Do you get to wear the white T-shirt that Daniel Bryan wears for? What is the thing, the initiation here? And then what's the next big match for him? Because he's proven that he can go toe-to-toe with these top stars. What is next so that he doesn't just get beaten really quickly and then we kind of forget about it? So that's what I'm very interested in as far as this is. But it was good stuff. It made me watch Rampage for the first time. I watched it to see Swerve, and I watched it to see this match. It's that show that's sitting on my DVR, and Sunday night when I'm like, I should probably catch up with this. By the way, Smackdown from time to time is like that as well. And then I just end up deleting them because I'm like, we got to go through all this again starting on Monday. So, I want some of my life back, and that's what ends up happening.
So here's a little tidbit that happened while we were doing the show. Dynamite has an overrun this week.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
Interesting.
It's going to run past 10. So I'm curious what's happening.
Well, and then they got the NBA playoffs, right? Because the NBA playoffs are here, so there's going to be some interruption with Rampage. I'm assuming until the TNT side of the thing is over before the NBA playoffs. So that's also going to be something that they're going to have to keep in mind when it comes to ratings and such. Is it's just going to be bumped around? They have this giant match on Friday, giant title match, and it is 7. Is it 7 Eastern for you for Rampage? It's 4:00 Pacific for me. Something.
Yeah, it's early. Yeah, 7. Yeah.
So that makes it easier for me to watch. Actually, at least watch live, because I'll just throw it on when I'm working.
I'm
But
never
yeah,
home.
so
I'm never home for it. I have to watch it Saturday morning, which I like watching it on Saturday. It's like 9 o'clock on Saturday. I got my coffee and I'm watching Rampage and I'm watching this man bleed to death. Great way to start my weekend.
yes. By the way, a little bit of inside Wrestling Observer Radio stuff. So Dave and I are supposed to go to Bellator on Friday. So
Oh,
Bellator's
nice.
running their big show of the year in San Jose, Pitbull against McKee. And so I think if I know Dave, and I'm going to ask him, like, when should we go to the show? He's going to, well, we got to watch Rampage first because
Oh
then
my
we're going to
God.
probably have to come back and do a podcast after the Bellator show is over. So
How far are you from the show?
Bellator?
Yeah.
10 minutes, 15 minutes.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah.
Easy
Yeah.
breezy.
Yeah.
What building are they in?
They're in the San Jose building, the Shark Tank.
The Shark Tank. Okay, got it.
Yeah.
Very cool.
Where the Sharks play. Yeah, it'll be fun. We used
to
go
do like
more...
a buddy vlog with Dave, like episode 1, going in the car with Dave. You know, I want to see all of it.
It's fun. Yeah, I mean, it was like when I didn't know him as well. It was just like my car ride with Dave was like my 40-minute opportunity to ask him all the questions that I've always wanted to ask him. But now that now that we've known each other for so long, those moments don't really happen as much where I'm like, oh, back in 1984, blah, 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 blah. But now it's just, normal day-to-day stuff. But all right, we made it. Another week of We're Live, pal. Next week, we're going dark. And it is my fault. It is my fault. I'm taking the week off. My wife's spring break. We're traveling to Tucson to go see my parents. My parents live in Tucson, Arizona. We're taking the puppies. My son is also a junior at University of Arizona, so going to see him. And I'm going to try and talk him in. Mick Foley is doing his stand-up show in Tucson on next Tuesday. So I've seen Foley live like 2 or 3 times. Like the last time he was in San Jose, he heard Dave's voice and, those stage lights. He was like, is that Dave Meltzer? And we were hanging out with Dave. But so I want to go because I've seen him a bunch of times and I'm trying to talk my kid into going to see Foley with me.
I'll do it.
He's not wrestling fan anymore, though. He's got great wrestling stories from when he's a kid, but he's only an MMA fan right now. So I'm going to try and talk him into going. But if we can see Mick Foley in Tucson, Arizona next Tuesday. But we're going to be off. We're going to come back the following week in our normal time. But yeah, we're just going to have to take a week off.
Yeah, that's all. Just listen, my kids are home too. Spring break.
Yeah.
And I'd like to do something with them. So I'm going to take Monday after Easter and I'm taking Tuesday. So nice little 4-day weekend for me.
Yeah. In the words of Jim Cornette, how can they miss you if you never leave, right?
Great line.
All right. So thanks to everybody for watching. Thanks to everybody for listening. We'll be back in 2 weeks. Same time, same channel. For Andrew Zarian, I am Double G. We'll see you when we see you. Peace out.